For all of our listeners out there who are not aware, recently there was a tragedy at a Travis Scott concert. The title of the concert was the Astroworld Festival, in which 10 people lost their lives. We definitely want to send our condolences out to the families of those who were lost. Obviously, I don't think anyone ever expects that, a loved one is going to go to a concert and never return. Definitely want to send our condolences out there from the good, the bad, and the truth. So the official question is, should Travis Scott be blamed for the Astroworld Festival chaos that injured some and killed 10 people? So I'm going to go ahead and start us off, fellas, because, this one definitely, put me in my feels a little bit. I really sat down and just thought about this from all the different perspectives, the victims and the people who experienced it in the crowd, Travis Scott, the police and, firefighters and that authority, as well as the security and concert officiants. And, my answer to that specific question is that I think the blame honestly lies with several folks, and one of them is Travis Scott. The others are the Houston Police Department and fire departments, and then the security and concert officials. And, I'll tell you why, because each one of those people had a responsibility to secure the safety of those concert goers, one way or another. Travis, as the artist, this is not his first occurrence. He has been fined and pled guilty to inciting riots at 2 different concerts of his prior to this, in which people were injured at those 2 events. Now, while there is no evidence that he did any specific actions in this case that would incite a riot, he did realize at some point in the concert that someone was injured and did like a brief 30-second stop. I mean, after his prior experiences with people being injured at his concerts and being actually convicted of and pleading guilty to inciting riots, and he also even saw an ambulance on the way to the concert, what in the hell was he thinking to not stop in that moment and say, hey, listen, until everyone is safe or until we know what's going on here, I got to pause this because safety has to be the number one concern. Now, I know people are going to argue, yes, but an artist is under contract and they're not wanting to get sued by the, concert officiants and all of that stuff. So basically what you're saying is they're electing to care more about their contract and possibly being sued than human life. Either way, it's unacceptable. As the artist, he had a responsibility to make sure that folks were okay. He briefly stopped, but ultimately continued the show. And at some point, you have to call out repeated behavior. This is not the first time that people were injured at one of his shows. It should have been a red flag to him to make sure everyone was okay. Now let's talk about the Houston Police Department. These guys literally had a representative go on record to say that they were not technically responsible for the public safety, even though it was on public property, because of the way that the rules and etc. are set up for these events. The people officiating the events are ultimately responsible. So let me clarify that for people, for our audience out there, our listeners. The Houston Police Department and fire authorities, or at least some folks within that, were aware that the crowd was a rowdy, for lack of a better term, because they were overthrowing security officers and even exceeding capacity, and did not take immediate intervention to stop the show. I'm not talking about just trying to pull back those people that's overrunning security or etc. I'm talking about getting on a bullhorn or driving fire trucks up to the show, or doing anything that totally was within their abilities to do to stop the show. They did not do, because they said ultimately the responsibility lied with the concert officiants. That was their argument. Bullshit. Ultimately, as public safety servants, they should have did whatever was necessary to save lives or to prevent the loss of lives. If those concert officiants wanted to come back and sue the city later, you argue, bitch, how you gonna sue me for saving lives? That's what my job to do. Any judge or jury that finds them guilty would have lost their damn minds. They did not do the right thing in this situation. They just didn't. No other way to speak on that. Last but not least, in my opinion, are the security and concert officiants. So if it was a known part of their contract that they needed to have a certain amount of security and etc., and they've also known that Travis Scott concerts tend to get a little unruly, hence them claiming that they stepped up security and etc., it was ultimately just horrible planning and lack of proper preparation and complete inefficiency that led to them being able to have security guards be overthrown at the gate. Are you fucking kidding me? That's absolutely crazy. And then to take it even further, there is one witness account where she says she hopped up on like a cameraman's equipment or etc., where he was, and alerted him and other officials that people were being hurt in the crowd and that people needed help and that people were being stomped on and etc. And they told her that if she did not immediately get off the equipment, she was going to be removed from the concert. Are you fucking kidding me?
That's so crazy.
You were
I was actually going to talk about that. I mean, so sorry to cut you off.
No, sorry. You're fine. You're fine, man.
But yeah, but I was actually going to talk about that when I got to my to my spot.
Yeah, because it's ridiculous.
That's so crazy right there. And
yeah, it is.
That's all I'm going to say right now. But I'm going to let you continue.
Oh, no problem. No problem. You're absolutely right, sir. It's ridiculous. So you were being told from someone who happened to make it out of the situation that people were being stampeded on and that people were on the ground and they couldn't breathe and they needed immediate emergency assistance. And all you said, your reply was that she needed to get off your equipment. I think if there is any culpability whatsoever from a legal standpoint, that they should be brought up on charges. That's my opinion, that they are directly responsible for what occurred as far as people not being able to be assisted, and that they should be brought up on whatever charges are appropriate, because that's fucking ridiculous. I mean, at some point, you have to be able to understand the human side of it. You have to get past this is a job, this is a contract. That's bullshit. Human lives have to outweigh that. So, in summation, to answer the question, should Travis Scott be blamed for the Astroworld chaos? Yes, he should, but there are others who are culpable as well. I feel like he needs to take the responsibility due to him, because the reality of it is, as the artist, if he were able to completely stop, not were able, but if he had completely stopped in the middle of his performance and said, hey, listen, I'm not picking up this mic again until we know that everyone over there in that area is safe, or etc. Why the ambulance is here, that person is taken away and safe, or etc. Who's to say he couldn't have prevented more lives from being lost? A 10-year-old boy has lost his life. The victims range in age starting with 10 years old. A 14-year-old, some other high schoolers, some college students. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It's unacceptable. No parent should have to bury their child because they decided to go to a concert. It's unacceptable. And all of those parties aforementioned are to blame. Those are my thoughts on it. I'm going to throw it to Mr. PAT to share your thoughts. What say you, sir?
All right. So I'm going to come at this from a different angle. So my answer to the question would be no. I don't think Travis Scott should be blamed for what happened at the festival. And I'm going to explain why. But before I do that, I would say if anyone is to be blamed, it should be the people who put the event together and didn't put the proper security measures in place. Now, what's interesting is I've come across articles mentioning that Travis Scott is facing lawsuits over this incident. There's actually a TMZ article that's talking about Travis Scott facing lawsuits from 125 plus attendees. Now, I just think it's interesting how an artist can be blamed for something that he initially had no control over. And I'm saying that because one of the articles I did come across, and the link will be posted in the description. One of the articles I came across, you had some of the people, some of the victims who were explaining what happened. And a few of them actually said that they were yelling, they were screaming, they were, basically yelling for help, and nobody could hear them. He couldn't hear anybody yelling. I guess security couldn't hear. Like, these people were crying out for help, and nobody.
Why did he stop the first time?
Well, honestly, why didn't he stop the first time?
No, why did he? At one point, he did stop and say that someone over there needed help. He saw something.
Well, I haven't came across the article explaining that. I guess that initial part, I could only assume or come to a conclusion that maybe somebody probably tapped him over the shoulder, somebody who heard the cries for help and was like, hey, dude, like, there's something's happening over there. We're going to have to stop this right now and address that. That would be my assumption based on what you just said. But other than that, this article where one of the victims is basically explaining what happened, they were saying that they were crying out for help and nobody was responding. So you're in this crowd of people, you're in this sea of people, and everybody's making all kinds of noises. Everybody's basically overly excited, so then of course the music's playing, so it's just too loud. And when you have people out there crying out for help, nobody can really hear, or nobody's even really paying attention. This victim, among others, even said that people were like running up to the front to get to the front of the stage, and they were trampling over people, and these people didn't even really give a fuck, pretty much, for lack of a better phrase. They didn't give a fuck. They just kept, going, trying to get to the front. So it was just the frenzy at that point. And then, of course, nobody's hearing anybody who's crying out for help. But to get back to what I was saying, though, yeah, so I just think it's interesting how Travis Scott is being blamed for something that he initially had no control over. For those of you who out there who are aware of her, she was the former mayor of Baltimore. She is now Travis Scott's spokesperson. So
time out.
Yeah.
I had to catch myself.
Yeah.
So you telling me
that's an interesting ass lead.
It is. Very.
Yeah. So former mayor of Baltimore now becomes a spokesperson for a rapper.
Yep.
How the hell did you pull that one off?
Yep.
But then on top of that, what? Like that's weird as shit. I ain't gonna lie.
It is. It's funny. Well, it's funny because I'm out here in Baltimore, but yeah, that's why I was like, yeah. So this Stephanie Rawlings-Blake. Shout out to Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, the former mayor of Baltimore, is now Travis Scott's spokesperson. Now, according to her, Travis is taking responsibility for what happened. She did say that he's taking responsibility for the solution to the problem. Let me just make that clear, because I think she was trying to say that more so, because she did say that she thinks it's ludicrous that he's being blamed for what happened. But she did mention that he's taking responsibility for the solution to the problem. I just want to make sure I get that right. I don't know if that was the best thing to say or not, but I guess that's her way of saying that he is not only remorseful, but will do what he can to fix the problem. The thing is this.
Fix the problem? I would not take my ass to a Travis Scott concert after this third.
Why does that sound like a whole response, though? It really sounds like a whole response. Like, he going, Travis is going to do what he's supposed to do. That that he know he was wrong, but then we know he was not wrong. But then he know he's going to take responsibility, but then he not going to take responsibility.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird response. It's very two-sided.
He stopped the concert more than once for a few seconds at a time, which means that he was aware that something really bad, or even if he wasn't aware of something really bad, he was aware something was going on. If you had to stop multiple times, you should have stopped it completely. I hate when, in general, Black people are just blamed for something that is not fully their culpability just because they're Black celebrities. I don't think it all is on Travis Scott, but dude definitely knew that something was going on. He should have just completely fucking stopped it. Like, why keep stopping multiple times? If that's the case, then that means, okay, something might be going on. Just completely stop it to see what the hell is going on and prevent people losing their lives.
Well, see, I guess on my end, I would need to know exactly why he stopped multiple times, because, in some of these shows, artists will stop a show to like speak to the crowd or to say something, they'll stop for certain reasons. We'll just put it like that. But he could have stopped a few times and he probably wasn't aware of what was going on. He probably just stopped because he wanted to.
An article on MSN says Travis Scott stopped the show multiple times over crowd surge concerns. That's the information that he gave Police Chief Troy Finner.
Okay, so he gave that information to the police chief. Okay.
So I mean, ultimately, it kind of goes both ways, PAT. You can argue that because he stopped multiple times, he showed appropriate concerns. And then you can also argue, well, he should have just completely stopped it.
Well, yeah, both arguments could be made, because if he stopped multiple times because of his concern, well, that says it right there. He's the artist, obviously. So if he's stopping all these times because he's concerned about what's going on, I still look at it from this angle where the people in charge, because of course he's not the only one, he's just one figurehead in it. The other people who are in charge of the venue or the event or whatever should have said, okay, something's happening. I mean, this guy is stopping his shows for whatever reason. He's concerned about X, Y, and Z. We need to go investigate and see what's going on. So I kind of still look at it like the responsibility falls on a lot of people. It's not just one person.
Agreed.
And I think for me, what it is they're making it about just Travis Scott. Like because, you know, it's his show. They're basically like, well, since it's his show, we need to just put all the blame on him.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he's not in charge of everything. He's in charge of showing up and performing. I mean, that's his job. That's his job. You know, it's just, to me, it's just something about one man being held responsible. You know, the thing is, too, there's no way to anticipate what thousands of people in a crowd might do at any given time. You see, when you go to your favorite artist's concert, you're literally surrounded by many other crazed fans. A lot of fans get overexcited, as we know, and might do things in the spirit of fun. But the thing is, things do go left pretty quickly, especially when you're in an overcrowded area. And unfortunately, there's a herd mentality that takes place at these types of events. And I mean, once enough tension builds up, people just get stuck. You know, one of the victims of the incident said that there were people being trampled over, which we had mentioned earlier. You know, she said that there were people on the ground who lost consciousness, but no one seemed to care. And they would just try to bypass one another just to get to the front. Now, to me, that this is where even some of the blame would have to go to some of the fans. And I'll get to that. I'll get to that when I close this out. But to speak on the trampled part, that's the shit that really trips me out, because anytime I hear about people getting trampled over, first of all, it's sickening to me. Like, real talk, it's just real sickening. But it reminds me of what used to happen on Black Friday years back, when people would get trampled over at a Walmart or any other retail establishment. It's like people just turn into animals in certain scenarios. And it's just crazy when you think about it. But anyway, I just think there's a lot of blame to go around. The finger can't just be pointed at any one person or persons. I would say whoever was in charge of the festival would be the ones who should be held responsible and held accountable for the most part. I would say maybe Travis Scott and Live Nation on some level. And obviously Travis Scott, because he's the headliner, of course. He's the main attraction, as they would say. But honestly, I gotta hold the people in the crowd accountable as well. because collectively, each individual who went out of control, and that behavior or lack thereof contributed to some people being injured and some people ending up dead. So that's pretty much the angle I'm coming from. I do understand that Travis is being held responsible. And I mean, obviously he's going to be, because like I said before, he's the main attraction. And it's not just about him. It could be any other artist who has a show and something terrible happens at their show. Guess who people look at? They look at the artist because they're the big name. They're the big target. So when something bad happens, people automatically think about that artist. They're not thinking about the ones behind the scenes. They're not thinking about the crew. They're not thinking about the security. They're not thinking about the people who put the event together. They're not thinking about all the other factors. They're not thinking about all the other pieces to the puzzle. The main focus is usually just on the main attraction. So I do understand that part. But in closing, I would just say that, yeah, there's a lot of blame to go around. And that does include people in the crowd as well. Because the people who unfortunately are dead, they're dead because of what happens within that crowd dynamic. The people who got injured, well, those people got injured by other people in the crowd. So those are just my thoughts on it. Overall, the blame has to be passed around to many people. I'm gonna just put it like that. And that's that.
All right. Thank you for sharing, sir. We're going to go ahead and throw it to E-Man to wrap us up. What say you, sir?
So I'm not even going to take this shit left, and I ain't going to take this shit right. I ain't going to take this shit up, and I ain't going to take this shit down. I'm going to throw this thing so far out the park, I'm about to hit like 2 or 3 home runs right now.
Okay. Okay, sir. I hear you.
Oh, boy.
I hear you, sir.
So when it comes to this whole Travis Scott thing, I don't even listen to this fool. I'm gonna just be honest with everybody. But
I don't either.
So first and foremost, what caught me off about this whole thing, that the show was called Astroworld and whatnot, and it's so crazy that, you know, the show was in Houston, yet the baseball team is called the Houston Astros and whatnot. So in the back of my mind, you know, I'm sitting here, that was too heavy of a coincidence. Like, really crazy. The name of the
he's from Houston. So I think that was why. Travis Scott is native to Houston.
I didn't even know that, but
yeah. So I think that's why it was called Astroworld, because he is a native of Houston. I'm fairly certain.
Yeah, but he is. He is from Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that. But and before I even say anything, Lil Flip is the best Houston rapper out there. Fuck you, Travis Scott. But I'm gonna continue and whatnot.
What about Scarface?
Right, I was going to say, what about Scarface?
Hold on.
Ghetto Boys?
I love Scarface. I just wasn't as big of a fan of Scarface that I was the Lil Flip. So this ain't disrespecting Scarface.
Interesting.
All right. The Ghetto Boys are dope and everything like that. You know what I'm saying? You know? But
in all fairness, though, one quick side note, I did hear that Lil Flip had more in his arsenal than just like the songs that were released to the public. But I can't say that I ever dove into his music. So
The Leprechaun 2 was actually a really dope album, by the way, though, too.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was doing his thing on the underground circuit for a minute until, of course, he went commercial. But
right. Which
that's
is
why
normally how it goes.
Yeah, that's why his first, like, you know, after, you know, the Leprechaun, that's why his second, or I think third acclaim album was called The Underground Legend and whatnot. But yeah, that's the whole, like, you know, like whole circuit scene with him and whatnot. But I definitely love Scarface. I'm just not as a big of a fan of Scarface towards Lil Flip and whatnot. That's why, because just the way.
I think you're literally the only person I've ever heard say that, but
it's only because I'm a huge Lil Flip. Like, I actually listened to a lot of his mixtapes, and like, I was like, yo, this dude is amazing. So like, yeah. So this ain't no disrespect to Scarface. It's just like, yo, like a lot of people just don't know. And that's the thing about him, Like when everybody think of Lil Flip, they always think about that song Game Over. I'll be like, all right, cool. But like,
I actually did like that song.
And that's actually one of his best songs and whatnot. Only because I like the video game beat to it. But like, it's just that dope. So yeah. So now kicking back to this and whatnot. So based upon, now Angel was talking about, that girl that jumped on all the whole, like, the equipment and whatnot, and of course I saw videos on IG. There were, people getting out down to the crowd and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That is true. He did stop the show several times, but I think on IG, whoever people's putting it out, I think they say he only stopped supposedly once and whatnot. But to me, I felt like this whole shit was planned and whatnot. It none of it made sense and whatnot. I'm like, when I first heard it out, they said that security and people who were like security detail was giving stuff to the crowd, when it first broke out. And I'm sitting here like, that's a little weird, and they said something about injecting people with something. I was like, that was also a little weird too, and after the story developed, different people gave different sides of the stories, and then they gave more and more less evidence based upon what people were willing to share. In my eyes, I was like, it just felt all weird, because it didn't involve like a weapon or anything like that. There was a lot of weird things going on. And to me, a lot of people, like certain people in the, in the music industry, some people call them Masons, some people call them worship devils. But like, for me, when I see weird shit, I just be like, yo, you doing something you ain't supposed to be doing. And I feel like that's the situation that happened at this concert and whatnot, So to me, whoever his damn spokesperson was, ex-mayor of Baltimore and whatnot, I don't know if you got that job for clout and whatnot. That's your business, not mine and whatnot. I don't know what he's cutting you as a check. That don't bother me and whatnot. But I still think there was some weird demonic stuff going on, because none of it made, you got an 8-year-old. I think the kid who died was 8 or 10 or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? In a coma and whatnot. You got like a 10-year-old in a coma. I'm like, damn, like what was really, really going on over there and whatnot. And based upon some of the video, but I think one kid who went into a coma, I mean, I didn't really see people get trampled, They literally just turn and they just see this dude like fizzing out and whatnot. And I'm like, damn, what was given out to like, at that damn concert and whatnot? I don't know. But to me, I feel like there was some weird demonic shit going on.
So you think it was like a ritual?
I think it was a ritual, to really be honest. Because I'll tell you like this, the common person, if something really happened, most people be like, oh shit, we shutting this shit down. Where's security? We need to get everybody out. Find the nearest exit. None of that and whatnot. You had to stop a show several.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you, Evan. I was going to say several artists have stopped their show because they thought people were injured. I mean, like, for me, that excuse is like a little whack, because you're basically saying, I don't really know what's going on, so I can't really be concerned about it because I'm responsible for performing. Well, dude, the most extreme thing was happening and people were losing their lives. It doesn't matter if you thought that it was just some petty shit with people yelling and screaming. Isn't the more important thing to do to make sure it's not what ultimately occurred, which was people losing their lives? I mean, artists have done that multiple times. People have stopped the show. Artists have stopped the show to say, I'm not going to put up with y'all booing and shit. So you can't stop the show to see if everybody okay? That part just doesn't fly with me from Travis Scott. Like I said, I don't think he's the only culpable one, but yeah, he's definitely responsible too.
I mean, I'm not going to say he's responsible. I'm basically saying like the nigga didn't care because he knew what he was doing. Like, like he wasn't going to stop the show regardless. Like he knew what he was supposed to do. He did it and whatnot, you know. But because people started showing cameras and started showing shit and whatnot, and now people was there, and now people was like, yo, this nigga just don't give a fuck. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, he just don't give a fuck. Because why? Because he knows it's a job. I got to do this. And like I told him, I'm not even going back. That was a damn ritual because they didn't, nothing over it. What happened made sense. And people sitting there recording. I was like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And like, and you want him to stop? Everyone was mad that he didn't stop. And, you know, he had to stop multiple times and whatnot. Now, basically, his spokesperson is the person over there and whatnot, trying to like make everything look so clean and like, he's not a bad person. You know, he's not this, you know, he's not that and whatnot, you know, just like PAT talked about a lot of spokesperson in the Black community and whatnot, you know, they always looking for that spokesperson. The biggest one is, who's the biggest one? Not Jesse Jackson. He a hoe. Sharpen. There you go. Al Sharpton. There you go. Biggest one. Mm-hmm. Biggest one. Like Dick Gregory said, you know, if they need something, they go to Al because why? He's the first Black person to have a show on a white network. And there you go. But just ending my thoughts and whatnot, you know, nothing's not going to change, you know, how I feel about a lot of rap. I mean, nothing's not going to change at all. But I don't listen to the guy, so, you know, nothing doesn't hurt me at all. All I'm saying is that shit was a demonic ritual. He knew what he was doing. Now he has to clear everything up because he has spokespeople to do it for him, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, the people who's really going to wake up is the people who actually went to his concert and witnessed everything that they witnessed and whatnot, you know. So, you know, I mean, I'll end it like this. I'm not going to fight about what was right, what was wrong, because he knew what he was doing. All I'm just going to say is like, this demonic shit just needs to stop. Like that's just all I'm going to end on. Like it just needs to stop. Like it was disgusting, you know, but you know, it takes many to, you know, speak about it, but we'll see what the aftermath is. I mean, we'll just see. We'll just see. Well, I'll just leave it as that. We'll just see. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Definitely a different perspective there. Thank you for sharing, sir. And again, we just want to give a quick, shout out and condolences to the families of all the victims who lost their lives at the Astroworld concert. Our thoughts are definitely with you.